Expected. Ladies, how y'all feel? Sisters, y'all all right? Well, good morning to everybody. I'm Ashley Stevens. I'm new to the Black Enterprise team and so excited and grateful to be here. I'm senior multi-platform content producer, so that's a fancy way to say I'm a producer and a host. Excited to be here with this stellar lineup of panelists, y'all. We have a lot to get into today. We're going to talk about preparing for the unexpected, financial readiness, right? We know the past 2 years have thrown a lot of curveballs our way. By a show of hands, how many of you been hit with some curveballs across the pandemic and beyond, right? So we're going to talk with these panelists about how to navigate through those curveballs with style, with grace, and most importantly, the financial smarts to do so. All right, y'all ready to meet our panelists? Let's get into it. Right here, I have Leah Easler, Associate Vice President, Nationwide Financial Diverse Markets Ambassador. Let's welcome Leah. Oh, so Leah got a standing up. Oh my goodness, Leah got a standing ovation. She got a theme song. You know what, we got to keep this going for the rest of our panelists as well, okay? Y'all, I want y'all to show the same amount of love. Next, we have Brandy Mickens, Executive Vice President of Mid-America Equitable Advisors. I love it. I love the hallelujah, the amen quarters and the hallelujah sections. I love all of this. And last, but certainly not least, we have news commentator, podcaster, political analyst, editor, and former co-host of the Tom Jordan Morning Show. Welcome, Miss Sybil Wilkes.
I got people.
Yes, Sybil, you have people. You have people. Oh my good, y'all. Y'all keep this energy. We need all of this energy. Y'all, how do y'all feel about having theme songs and a whole cheering section, right?
Fabulous.
I love it. I love it. This is exciting. Well, we're excited to have all of our panelists here. Let's hop right into it, right? I would love to have each of you tell me just a little bit more about what each of you do in your day-to-day roles, and then answer this question: what does financial readiness mean to you?
First, thank you again for this opportunity to be here with you all today. Again, my name is Leah Easler, and I have the privilege of working at Nationwide for almost 17 years. And in that, my day-to-day right now really is focused on developing new opportunities, transformational experiences to transform, obviously, our marketing organization. But specific to our life insurance business, being a diverse markets ambassador, when we think about the financial education that's needed in communities of color and underserved communities, Nationwide is committed to making sure that we can, bring forward the information, building trusted relationships, and connecting our consumers with the financial professional of their choice.
Well, good afternoon or morning. I don't know what time it is.
Right, wherever we are.
I'm still on East Coast time, trying to get my life together out here in Vegas. But I am Brandy Mickens again, Executive Vice President of Equitable Advisors, and very, very proud to every day be able to serve people. And when I say serve people, when you think about a financial advisor, people always think about just the money aspect. But the reality of it is a financial advisor helps you with a lot of things in your life. So when we wake up every day and we talk to our clients, I'm thinking about how am I going to send somebody's kids to college? How are we going to make sure people retire on time and with dignity? How are we going to make sure women in this room who have businesses or who have careers are able to maximize the things that they need to do not only for themselves but for their next generations? And so really what we do is we help people, and I love it. I get a chance to lead an organization that spans across Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. I'm very proud to say I'm the first Black woman in Equitable's 164-year history to be in this role. And I'll end with this. Was inspired, I was just sharing with Sybil that in 2020 I came to this conference, and the next week the pandemic hit. But at that conference, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? What's the next move in my life? Where's my career going to take me? And because of the Women of Power Summit, I was inspired, I was motivated, and I was energized to take this next step into leadership. And so just hopefully, even though we're going to be talking about money today, we also want to encourage each of you all to whatever that next step is for you, whatever it's going to take you to get there, that you leave this conference believing that you can do it. So very grateful. And thank you to my equitable women here. They are amazing.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy.
My name is Sybil Wilkes, and I am the former co-host of the nicely retired Tom Joyner morning show. My story is a lot different in that when Tom told us 2 years before the end that he was going to retire, this gave us, we thought, ample opportunity. However, to work on our next. However, time really does fly, doesn't it? And you know, the older I get, the more I feel like I sound like my mother when I say, where did it go? Where did it go? And so I wasn't fully prepared for my next chapter, my next step. But I have the benefit of being raised by a single black woman who showed me how to create a budget and to do all the necessary day-to-day things, right, in order to be prepared for the unknown. My mother did not live to see the pandemic, and so that unknown was truly beyond most of our grasp and understanding. But I have the power of girlfriends. And I have my best friend who is here. Yolanda is my partner in, well, she calls us soulmates. I'm not sure how her husband feels about that, but she is one of the brightest women I've ever known, and she has worked as an executive producer and worked for major corporations like BET and done things like that. And so when we were talking about what we were going to do, she grabbed me by my neck and said, here's what I think, and what do you think? And so we had an opportunity to continue what we were doing in a form that's not radio, so it was totally out of my scope. Because all I knew how to do is, my mother used to say, where else could you get paid for what you used to get in trouble for? And I was running my mouth. But she got with the owner of our company, David Canner, and came up with an idea about a newsletter. And it sounds it wasn't very sexy. It wasn't something that I was comfortable with like this. But we started a newsletter, and so it's called What You Need to Know. And if I can ask all of you to take out your phones and just go to sybilwilkes.com and to subscribe to our newsletter. It's absolutely free, I promise, but it costs us, but we would love your support. But we started this newsletter, and we started it in November of 2019. In April, after the pandemic had begun, and I was living with Yolanda and her husband, Ward, because we needed to be together to do this newsletter. We got a call from David Canner and said, I'm sorry, but you all are fired. I have been fired once in my life in radio, and you're in radio and you know this. In radio, you are hired to be fired, right? One time. And so we were like, oh, huh? What? And so we had to just kind of get our acts together and begin again. And as owners of this, I've always worked for the man. Doesn't that sound old? I've always worked for the man. I sound like my daddy at the barbershop. But so being ready for this, I wasn't ready, but I had done my due diligence in terms of investing and things like that. And so I could live with Ward and Yolanda, but I had savings. Now, unfortunately, I'm at a point where they're like, you gotta pay some of this back and that kind of thing. But I was ready in terms of the finances and all the other things that start with starting your own company and things like that. That is a lot. So I hope to share some of this with you and to let you know that you're not alone and that there's nothing like the power of sisterhood and good advice. I think following those steps.
I think when you mention financial readiness, to me it's exactly what Sybil touched on. It's being ready for the unexpected, which is why we're here. No matter what phase of life you're in, whether it's coming out of college and thinking about student debt, if it's starting a family, if it's preparing for retirement, it's never too early to really start planning and thinking about your financial future. And there is something for every phase of life that we're in, and I hope that we really get into it today.
Awesome. Well, let's continue to get into it. Listen, I think one thing we can all agree on: groceries right now are not cheap.
Okay.
Right? I think we can all agree on that.
Well.
The Amen Corner has spoken. And as we mentioned also, listen, we know we have ladies from all different areas in your career, right? Whether you're just beginning, whether you're associate or mid-level, whether you're the C-suite, it all hits us in different ways. So I'd love to hear from each of you ways that you've had to make adjustments during the pandemic and since, just for the, inflation, just living day-to-day life. How have each of you been able to make financial adjustments?
I'll start just with that question. And I think one of the things that we have to be realistic about, again, is just planning. And so Leah talked about that, because you never know what's going to happen. And so what is the saying? You don't want to have to get ready, just stay ready. And so as advisors, those are the things that we talk constantly about to our clients, is stay ready. And so when things like this happen, when you go to the grocery store, and a year ago eggs were $3 and now they're $6. That's really tough, particularly in times where that's not just the only thing that's increasing. We're talking about everything. So one of the things that, I'll just use an example of something that happened with me and my family. So I'm in Cleveland, and we moved to Cleveland about 2.5 years ago from Dallas. And at the time we ended up selling our house in Dallas. We had not bought a house in Cleveland yet, and we were just, kind of getting used to the city. And then we were ready to buy a house. Well, what happened? Interest rates shot up. The value of homes, I was paying attention, and I was like, oh my God, you really think this house is worth that? And I just saw, I'm not stupid. I was looking at 6 months. And so it was really frustrating, because there are things that we have to do as individuals, and we don't have choices about buying food. We didn't have a choice. We needed to buy a house. We needed a place to live, because we had just outgrown the apartment that we moved into. And so, one of the things that I tell people about situations like that is you just never know when these things are going to happen. So you have to make sure you have that savings set up, emergency savings, number one, because emergency savings is not just so I can emergency go to Las Vegas and buy a new purse. That's not emergency. Emergency savings is if I lose my job, I can still have a fallback. Emergency savings is when inflation happens in a way that we haven't really seen in decades, quite honestly. Some of you all may remember, I'm back in the 80s, but most of the people in this room probably don't remember inflation at this. I've been in the business for 21 years, and I've never seen it. So again, the fundamental aspect of this is don't have to get ready, stay ready. And as advisors, those are the things that we talk about. And even we ended up purchasing our house. I'm really happy about that. Again, at an interest rate I probably would not have wanted to, but you can always refinance and do things like that. But just stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Like I said before, I did have the benefit of good financial advice. I have a gentleman who, I still can't pronounce his last name, so I just call him Kendall. But I did have a very strong woman who showed me on a Chicago public school teacher's salary how to live and to raise her daughter to go to college and be able to pay off her student loans. And I'm not saying, I'm no shade, if you can get them done by the government, more power to you. But she raised me to do that. And it was by watching her every month go through the budget. And so now when I tell Yolanda it's not in my budget, and she's like, what budget you got? And then I just had to, remember and retrain myself in that way of that I was raised, and to know that that's the way I needed to live my life, not just for now, but forever. Especially as I get older and think about, what happens if they take away Medicare and Social Security and things like that. You have to think about that.
Very true. And I would love for Leah to touch on just walking us through financial readiness. What does that mean? How can we ready ourselves financially, whether these unexpected life events happen or just preparing for the day-to-day that we know is coming?
Happy to do it. But before I say another word, this material is not a recommendation to buy or sell a financial product or adopt an investment strategy. Please consult your financial professional. On behalf of Nationwide and Brandy from Equitable, we do know that FINRA is in the room. We want to make sure that compliance, yes, we make sure that we take care of business.
So look, Leah and I said earlier, we said if we walk out of here and somebody says, Brandy is my financial advisor and I don't know you, well, I'm not your financial advisor.
But in all seriousness, financial readiness, it is so important, and I don't know about all of you, but I think that we do have some shared experiences based on what we've seen throughout these workshops. And if talking about finances was taboo in your family, or if, children, you don't get involved in grown folks' business, and you may not have been at the table when your parents discussed the budget, or I was raised by a single mother, so she didn't discuss finances with me. I just knew, why I had to get glasses off of this little rack over here, and, it wasn't in the budget, or, different things. But it's really critical to have those conversations and for us to be open to getting the education and meeting with a professional. As Brandy pointed out, it takes real advice and support, and it's a partnership, and it has to be a trusted partnership, and we have to open ourselves up to that. I know with the history and some of the things that we've talked about at Nationwide through our Nationwide Retirements Institute, this has been a long road. And when we think about whether it's redlining, when we think about as a community, we didn't have access to life insurance until the late 60s. And when we did get that access, it was for a burial policy. And so there are so many other living benefits and aspects of how you use life insurance and other products as an investment strategy or even for retirement that we just don't know or we haven't had access to, and we're still playing catch up. And we can see that in the wealth gap numbers that we see today.
I like that you mentioned wealth gap as well. Let's talk about financial gaps a little bit. I want to come to Brandy and talk about some of the gaps that arise in financial planning. What are some of these gaps and how do we address them?
So I'm going to piggyback off what Leah said, and I'm going to really address us as Black women in this room. One of the biggest gaps is the educational gap. And excuse me, when we talk about our starting place is not the same as some of our counterparts. We have seen it being in this business, and so the catch-up game is real. One of the things I would say from that standpoint that is a positive is that a lot more of us, particularly Black women, are gainfully employed. They're graduating from college at higher rates. We're getting good employment opportunities or starting our own businesses. So now we do have the resources, but it's about the educational piece of what do we do with those resources and how do we do it responsibly and how do we change the narrative around maybe what we saw growing up. It was interesting when I was younger, my mom was, she was a single mother after we got divorced from my dad. And I remember vividly that when she left my dad, she lost everything. She had no idea how to manage money because he took care of all of that. By the way, women, this is not to disparage your partners or your husbands. Just because somebody says, I'm taking care of that, you need to know what that is and be very involved in that. But I can remember that because when we talk about just the gaps, she didn't know anything, so she didn't have anything. And that lasted for the next 25 years. I mean, I was out of college, and she didn't have anything saved for retirement, all because of a divorce that happened when I was 8 years old. So when we talk about what can we do to close the financial planning gaps, we have to be proactive. This is a great, for those of you all who chose to come into this session, because you had lots of choices that you could take advantage of at this time. That was a choice. That's a starting place. Get the education. Go further. Seek it out. Don't try to do everything on your own. I will say that if you can work with a professional, it's always a better situation, just in any realm, whether it be a financial professional or some other things that you're involved in. But the gap, we can close the gap. It's not going to be overnight, but we have to take the resources that we have now and start thinking about how do I create good habits? What are some of the strategies that I can employ to make sure that I'm managing my finances the way I need to? And I realize a lot of you all in here probably have some really good incomes and opportunities, that still doesn't matter. I've seen people who make a lot of money and spend every single dime. Every dime. So don't confuse like making a lot of money for being a good manager of your money. You have to still employ good habits.
I like that, good habits, and I want to come to Sybil because Brandy talked about being educated, right? Sometimes this isn't something we always talk about, and maybe there's no one in your life to talk with you about finances, about budgeting. I would love to discuss, Sybil, how does the media impact or influence our financial decisions?
Well, the media impacts us in a number of different ways, and how you choose to get your news makes a big difference. Who you choose to go to, if it's somebody that looks like you, hi, that makes all the difference in the world. Also, we are, because of our lived experiences, we are more likely to give you information that we have learned through these things, these changes, and these opportunities or lack thereof that we've had in our career. I will tell you that Tom Joyner has made a very good living. And I made a very good living. Not Tom Joyner good living, but I made a good living. But when you look at the men around Tom Joyner who were also co-hosts, they made a better living than I did. That's the real. And there are women who are in prime radio positions today. And you know this, Ashley, right? Women who are in prime, who have their names in the jingle. And they're not making the kind of money that their male counterparts are, whose names are in the jingle. That's not fair. So we're talking about that gap right there. And it's a lot like that old Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers line, you know, she does everything in high heels and backwards. We're doing a lot more than people understand that we're doing, that we don't get the financial benefit from. And so we have to understand our worth, and we also have to do our homework to find out. And there are people who are willing to tell you, like Sherry Shepard tells a great story about when she was negotiating to work for The View, and how Rosie O'Donnell said, this is what I'm making, this is what you should ask for. Now, we're not all comfortable with that, but we have to do our due diligence and help the next to get to that point, so that we are all equal. And so now we're looking at 2 Black women who are running a company, and we are running at a deficit. But we know that we're going to get there, but it takes a lot more work. We have to do it in nicer heels, as well as do it sometimes swimming, sometimes dancing, sometimes, you know, doing what you got to do. But it is all a part of that, and learning the rules and playing the game and winning.
Ashley, can I add one thing to what Sybil said? Was talking about, you know, a woman business owner, and you know, business ownership is a wonderful thing, particularly if you've had something that you've wanted to do your whole life, and now you found the opportunity and the window to do that. I always encourage people to follow their dreams. But as you follow your dreams, can you plan for your dreams? And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I mean, this panel is planning for the unexpected. So sometimes you're forced to do things sooner than you thought because of whatever, you know, situation
That's kind of thrust into.
Yeah, that happened. But if there's an opportunity to do some planning beforehand, if you know, hey, I want a business, it takes a lot of capital to run a business. And again, just understanding the outlying factors. When interest rates are high, that hurts a person who's looking to access money or capital for starting their business. So sometimes, to Leah's point, there are different ways you can create your own vehicles for capital to make sure that you have money set aside when you're ready to start a business. Maybe there's some self-financing that you can do. Maybe there's some things you can still present yourself to get a better look from banks in terms of loans. But I would just say, in terms of making sure that you're doing planning, it always sounds good to start something and follow your dreams, but planning is definitely important in that journey because it makes your lives a lot easier and it helps your business stay afloat. This has been probably one of the biggest challenges that we've seen through the pandemic and even post-pandemic, particularly as it relates to Black business owners, is just the impact that it's had on on us in our communities, and you all have probably seen it firsthand in every single community that you're in, is that a good Black business went under.
Thank you for sharing that, Brandy. And I want to come back, you mentioned the notion of, businesses being able to prepare, but let's go back again to just us as women, as Black women, these unexpected life events. Many folks here may be in what's called the sandwich generation. You might be taking care of your own families while raising aging parents, or for some of our younger ladies, you may be thinking about family planning, right? Or some of you, retirement, right? It's not too early to ever think about retirement. Lee, I'd love to come to you and talk about what are some of these unexpected life events, whether it's divorce, death, major illness. What can we do to prepare for some of these major life events?
Absolutely. The thing that I would say, really going back to what Brandy pointed out, having that plan, talking with someone about it to lay those things out in terms of the foundation. Starting with your budget, starting with your emergency plan. If you know you want to start a family, what does that look like? Daycare costs are pretty expensive, and my youngest is 14 years old, and it was expensive then. So all of those things that you really need to set aside and say, okay, what do I need to do to make this a reality? When you pointed out the sandwich generation, I want to pause there for a moment. The pandemic certainly underscored, and as Black women, the number of women that needed to either step away from their careers because you had to become a teacher and or a caregiver, just really exponential just in terms of the impact. And as Sybil pointed out, if you're already feeling the burden of not being paid as much as your male counterpart, and now you add on top of that caregiving, the toll that takes on us mentally, emotionally, physically, and now you're stressed and worried about, the bill pay. There are solutions out there that everyone in this room, we should start to think about. Many of us, just from a cultural standpoint, prefer to get care in our homes and or from a family member. There are resources to help us do that and plan for that. So again, it all goes back to having the conversation with a professional. We can all do our own research online. We can look things and create that base level, because you never feel like you get to a certain point in your career and maybe you feel like, I should know this already. There is no shame in asking a question or asking for help. And so put that aside and be prepared to go in and ask that question, just in terms of, hey, what do I need to do to prepare? I know that my mother is aging. What will I need to do to be able to work? Because I don't want to stall out my career. I'm not trying to be selfish, but at the same time, I want to care. And so having those conversations and working with someone that can be objective in walking you through potential solutions.
Got it. And I appreciate you sharing that. There was a recent survey by caring.com that said that more than 70% of Black Americans do not have a will. Y'all, that's a lot of us. That's a lot of us. And it's a topic I think a lot of us don't want to talk about. We don't want to face it. You talked about aging parents, right? You want to be in a place where you can take care of the elders and the loved ones in your life. But let's talk about the value of creating a will and estate planning, because that's a part of financial readiness, not just for us, but the generation before us and the legacies coming behind us.
So really quick on this one, I will tell you that we probably stopped hosting Christmas at my house after this activity that I had everyone in the family, where we would normally break off and watch football or watch movies. I'm like, hey, here's a worksheet. Let's all talk about what our wishes are. And we went through a little exercise. So that was the last Christmas dinner that I hosted. But needless to say, we know what Granny wants. We know what Aunt Val wants. So we're very clear. There don't have to be any disagreements about what wishes are. But the one thing that I will call out, if you don't have a will in place, or family members or friends, I will point you to a resource, and that's freewill.com /nationwide. But if you remember nothing else, freewill.com, free will. So there's no reason that we can't at least put something in place until you can get to that conversation with a financial professional.
Awesome, thank you.
I'll just add to that too. A will is a good starting point. There's a lot of things that you have to do in terms of estate planning. One of the easiest things to do is to always make sure all of your beneficiaries are updated on any policies or accounts that you have. The worst thing you want to happen is your ex-husband get your stuff.
There's a reason why he's your ex.
That wouldn't be nice. So that's like that's like a layup. We do a lot of things called beneficiary reviews or beneficiary audits. Just check in at least once a year, make sure things are updated. The wills are important. Medical directives are important. So there's a whole lot that happens around that. I love what Leah said about, really talking to your family. If you have to do something creative, do that.
That's right.
But really, again, this is just a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. For Black people, we don't want to talk about money. And we don't like to talk about money. We're very private. And I may be making some generalizations here, but I think I'm talking to somebody. Yeah. And I've experienced this in my own family. And unfortunately, when things happen, it creates a lot of disarray. And so when we're thinking about these opportunities, don't wait for something to happen. If you can sit your parents down, your spouse down, your whoever in your life that you may have some responsibility for from a financial perspective, you have to have the conversations with them before something happens. If you don't take anything else away from this session, get up the courage and talk to your family members. It is very, very important. And there's to Leah's point, there's different tools out there. We have something called a family love letter where it's just like a booklet. And I literally handed it to my dad and I said, fill this out. We don't even really have to talk about it too much, but I need you to fill out everything in this booklet so that I know what you have in place and what needs to happen and how you want things to go, because it was uncomfortable for me as well. So that's what I would share from that aspect.
I just want to share one thing. My dad was a Chicago fireman, and he died on a Sunday. That next day, people were at the house and phone calls and what have you, and my mom got a call, and he said, I'm really sorry about George dying, blah, 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 but you need to get down to the Fireman's Pension Board, because his first Mrs. George Wilkes is here to collect his pension. And what my father's first wife did not understand is that his second wife was on top of it and had made that change. But, like you said, if you don't make these changes and keep up to date with things, we very well could have been left out in the cold. And so, and you know how people's minds work, and girlfriends and talking and stuff. And we just need to keep reminding, like when you have a baby or when you break up or, the love of your life is gone, you gotta, as my mother used to say, that's why God made erasers, because you just erase them and you keep right on going. And you gotta fill in the next. Of course, she was married 4 times, so that's true. That is the God's honest truth. But stay on top of these things.
Are y'all getting something out of this session today? I think we've gotten lots of gems. Stay on top of it, right? Don't be afraid to have these tough conversations, because these things are going to happen. At least life events are going to happen, and we have to be prepared ahead of time. It is time for Q&A. We have a mic at the back, so if you'll go ahead and be thinking of your questions, get to the mic. If you would introduce yourself by name, state your question very clearly and concisely, we'll proceed with our Q&A. And we do want to note that as soon as our panel wraps, we'll grab a picture here on stage. But if you do want to catch our panelists, we'll ask you to do so outside of the room, because we want everyone to make your way to enjoy our luminary luncheon. All right? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, ladies. My name is Vicki Howard, and just thank you so much for the conversation. So my question, at the top of the session, I heard that financial advisors do so much more than just the finances. If y'all could walk us through the characteristics that we need to look for when we're assessing financial advisors. I find that the internet can make things overwhelming, and you don't know, and it is something that's a bit more personal. So would love to get some tangible advice.
Excellent question.
I'll make that comment, so I'll share a little bit from that perspective. And I love this question. One of the first things you want to think about is who can you have a good relationship with? And the reason why I say that is because as a financial advisor, it's kind of like going to the doctor. You got to get in your business. And you have to be able to feel comfortable sharing that. You have to feel like that person is going to have your best interest in mind. You want to look at their credentials. You want to find out, what is their philosophy if they have some information, and just have a conversation with them. Most advisors will meet with you free of charge, do a consultation, talk to you a little bit about your situation, and you can kind of gauge that. Now, I will say this, because I run an organization where I'm very committed to hiring more people of color into our organization. because the financial industry is very underrepresented. So we need more people who look like people in this room to be advisors. Because I tell you personally, I try to do business with every black person I can do in any form or fashion, my doctor, my hairstylist, you know. But unfortunately, you can't always find that person, a woman or person of color. And that you don't have to, but it would be nice sometimes. So do that first, you know, build that relationship, find out more about the person, their philosophy, and then from a holistic standpoint, ask them, what can you help me with? You know, some advisors are licensed to do some things and not others. Some are licensed to do a lot more, and so sometimes it can be more of a one-stop shop if that person's able to help you with more items in your life.
And feel free to interview a couple. And so, as Brandy pointed out, you want to find the right fit, and don't shy away from the cost question. So make sure that you understand how they get paid, or what are the costs associated with the services to help you make the best decision for you. And I think to the point that you made, just in terms of the focus across the financial services industry to increase, representation in this space, Nationwide did create FAIR, which is the Financial Alliance for Racial Equity, and we have partnered with many of the financial firms here represented at the conference and HBCUs to try to do that part. Now that's going to take time, but in the meantime, we do need to, focus on fostering trust for the benefit of this community.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Dwana Barnes, and I am a product manager at Equitable Financial Life Insurance Company. My question is this. I have two siblings that are financial advisors. They find that people think it costs a lot of money to hire a financial advisor. Can you opine on that? What is the cost of hiring a financial advisor?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every advisor works differently, so I can't speak for all advisors. But for a lot of situations, that's like just something that we have to take away that myth. A lot of times it does not cost as much as people think. In fact, a lot of times when you're making investments, the cost of whatever you're investing in is incorporated into the investment. So a lot of times you're not writing a check for anything. Sometimes you are, but not all the time. And so there's a lot of ways to structure things. Advisors will look at, again, how much money are they managing for you? What are the different services? What I would say is, at the end of the day, we pay more for the insurance on our cell phones than we do to invest in our financial future. And that's an issue. When you think about all the things that we pay for on a daily basis that, I hate to say frivolous, but, at the end of the day, they don't add value to us. Take some of that money and go invest in something that adds value to, like your retirement plan and your investments, your insurance. But from that standpoint, and DeWanda, by the way, we got to talk to your sister because she's not with Equitable. Her sister's not with Equitable, so I've been trying to talk to her about that. But okay, thank you. That's my answer.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zania Watkins. I'm here from UKG. My question, kind of going into it, is I'm also a business owner, and I'm starting to learn that there are strategies around taxes that you can use to help your financial readiness and improving your financial stability. I know that none of you are tax advisors or analysts on the panel.
But if I may say, in our newsletter, we do have a sister who is
All
a
right.
CPA and gives us tax advice.
So if you can answer this, what are some important things around taxes, or can you explain the importance around understanding taxes or having someone to share with you the information about taxes in order to help with that? If you can't do that, then how can you explain how to use a trust to protect assets that you're passing on to beneficiaries?
I'm going to leave it to the financial experts. Finance is not my ministry.
So as a business owner, you definitely should be working with a CPA. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's number one. You have to have a CPA because really as a business owner, it really is just individuals. You've got to have a team of advisors, mm-hmm. people who specialize in different things. If people come to me, I have my area of specialty, but it wouldn't be taxes, so I'd refer them to a CPA, an estate planning attorney to work with you on your trust and things of that nature. But as a business owner, probably the most critical thing, you have to manage I don't know if you have payroll, books, all of that stuff. So that would be your first stop. In terms of utilizing a trust, A trust allows you to, it just depends on what type of trust, but it allows you to protect your assets in certain situations. It allows you to have your assets given the way you would like them given and not somebody else controlling what happens in that situation. It almost speaks for you even when you're not here. So that's important as well, because sometimes when people are looking at, I want my kids or my grandkids to have something, you may want to put stipulations on when they can have it, what age. I had a friend I used to work with. She ended up, her grandparents said, in order for you to get this money, you have to get a master's degree. And so she went back and she got her master's degree. But so there's a lot around that, but an attorney can help you with that, as well as a CPA and a financial advisor. So you really want to have a team of people as you're walking through your financial needs.
And depending on the size of your business, there are also resources, whether it's your local Chamber of Commerce, or I think about the National Society of Women Business Owners, or even minority business owners, leveraging free resources or other counsel that you could get until, as you build that team of professionals around you, all things that are critical as you think about business succession and options for capital.
Awesome. If I can just say, thanks to the folks from AARP, and our relationship with them, learning so much more. They have something called the Money Map. And so if you go to AARP and /Money Map, I believe, or you just go to the Google, and it gives you a really good idea of how to handle your business. And this is for anybody. It's absolutely free. 18 and older. You don't have to wait till you're 50 in order to do this. And while I'm at it, I'd just like to thank the wonderful women from AARP who brought us here, because our business is dependent upon businesses and getting partnerships and things like that to keep our business going. So we want to thank them for supporting two struggling sisters out there trying to keep our business going. But it's Money Map at the aarp.org site.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This will have to be our final question, and all others will make sure that you can catch our panelists in the hallway. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Imani Du Bois, and I work in digital production at Saatchi & Saatchi. I'm fairly new to this role, so my question is, what financial advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Marry well.
That was going to be my ending question, but thank you. Yes, talk about it. What would you tell your younger self?
My younger self, there was an opportunity to participate in an investment club with some very seasoned sorority sisters of mine, and I thought, I'm like, I just didn't think I needed to at that time, and so that's something that I would say is never too early. Definitely talk with others, especially as you think of people that have blazed the trail before you, to get advice and learn more. I was always focused on saving. I was always taught to, as soon as you get a job, invest in your 401k and max out, get the match. So all of those things I think that are basics. I was able to do that, but definitely learning more about investments. I would have liked to have done that earlier in my career.
You said Imani?
Yes.
Imani, if I could be 25 again, I would say, don't waste this time. And what I mean by that is, and I don't know your situation, but when I was 25, I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. I didn't have any real life responsibilities, not a whole bunch of people depending on me. And so, fortunately, I was in this business at the time, but what I find with a lot of 25-year-olds or people, who are getting started in their careers, there's just so much money that we waste. And if you can start the simple things as early as possible, putting money into your 401k at work if you have the option, or 403b if you're in the nonprofit or school sector, which is an easy way to save for your retirement, and try to do as much as you can at that point. Savings, just an emergency savings, building up habits, at least 10%. If you're 25 and you don't have a bunch of bills and you're still on your parents' insurance and then somebody's paying your car note and maybe you're living at home, save every dime until they kick you out and get tired of you. But that's what I would tell my 25-year-old self, is don't waste this time, because when you do have kids and you do have other responsibilities and maybe taking care of your parents, you can't get that back. And sometimes that money that you saved earlier on, it's going to give you the resources that you need to do some of the things that you need to do at a different point in life. So do as much as you can today.
Very true.
Thank you.
I would say to my 25-year-old self, go to graduate school and get an MBA, and do that on your company's dime. Because you're going to be paying off student loans and things like that, but do that with the company if they have a program that allows you to go and get an advanced degree. That really will. It's because the other part of that is you're working hard for them, and make your work for you in that respect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imani, to our panelists. Well, yes, I want to touch bases on something that was shared as well. You talked about taking advantage of what the company has to offer, right? So whether that's tuition reimbursement, I'll be very frank with you all, if there are fertility options, that's something I wish that I would have had at the companies that I've worked for. And it's not knocking any particular company, it's just everybody doesn't have it to offer, right? But if that's an opportunity, that was an unexpected life happening for me, right? 25 years after having debilitating pain, I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis, which Tia Mowry talked a little bit about yesterday at the lunch. Then all of a sudden, oh, you're 37, you only have a short window to freeze your eggs, and that's coming out of pocket. So just think about these things. Even when you're younger, you may be like, I'm not trying to think about this right now. Ask your company, what do they offer, right? Find out any and everything that they do offer to prepare yourself. Preparing for retirement early, right? Investments early, that tuition reimbursement, all these things are things you can really consider early. And I want to just wrap with specific tools, websites each of you use for financial planning. I've heard about FAIR, a financial love letter, AARP's money map. So from each of you, and y'all feel free to take these notes so you can take this with you. What are the specific financial tools, calculators that you use for your financial planning?
For me, Nationwide protects people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. So look no further than nationwide.com. And I did mention free will earlier as well, but definitely using my own company resources and partners and my own financial professional. Those are the things that I tap into.
So just to piggyback off of Leah, but not Nationwide, equitable.com. Equitable.com, and I say that, but there's a ton of resources on our website. And here's another thing just to think about. Ashley brought it up. Your companies probably have a lot of things that are available to you. Sometimes they even provide some financial information for you go into your 401k plans. They'll let you model out what my retirement will look like in 20 years when I'm ready to retire. So utilize those tools, and those are things that you can talk to your advisor about. So don't steer away from your company. Some of you all work for financial companies, so utilize some of the tools there as well. But our website is always a resource, and obviously connecting with people that can help you.
I would say go to SybylWilkes.com, sign up for our newsletter, because I promise you, if I thought my life was a little on the slow side and not very active and exciting, when I was working for Tom Joyner, it's even more so now, because I listen and I read constantly. And so, and what I hear, and I think that our viewers and our readers can benefit from, we put in the newsletter. And especially because they look like us. And so that's really important. And we also have a streaming show in which we call upon experts to give their take on these things as well. And that also, it's called It's Sybil, or What You Need to Know Headlines. That's Monday through Thursday on YouTube and Facebook Live. And It's Sybil was a name that was given to us by our forever president, Barack Obama. So just give him a shout. But SybylWilkes.com will take you to all of these things. And I promise you, I am always, and Yolanda will tell you, I have very little life with the exception of news gathering and writing stories. So, because I really want to, as we like to say, inform and empower people.
And on a final note, lastly, y'all, if you don't take anything else from this session, take advantage of the resources they're offering, right? Their websites they've offered. I've subscribed to Sybyl's, her newsletter for several years now, y'all. Free information that's just gonna help you in your day-to-day life, right? So take advantage of these things. Going back to the company offerings, mental health services. Yeah. If your company offers anything related to mental health help, take it. Because the notion of being financially prepared or unprepared can take a toll on you mentally, emotionally, physically, right? We always talk about at Black Enterprise, health is wealth. So find those free resources as well to also take care of your mental health. I hope you all enjoyed today's session. I hope you will help show me love for Leah Easler, Brandy Mickens, Sybil Wilkes, Take charge of your financial readiness. Thank y'all so much for being here.